Elise Hodge. Welcome to the WorkPlay Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to do this interview. You have no idea because I love all things funnel, copy, anything that really amplifies conversions. And I just feel like you are the perfect person to talk about this. So before we get into all of this, who are you? How long have you been in business? What is your business? Tell us all the things.
Okay, well, hi everyone who's listening. It's lovely to speak to you today. So I'm Elise Hodge. I am Australian, as you can tell from the accent. I am a funnel and launch strategist, also a copywriter, long-time copywriter, and I have been in the business world since about 2016, I want to say, maybe 2015. I actually started with a blog. So it was like a faith-based blog, which I created, and I was sharing things on Instagram, grew on Instagram really rapidly, learned a ton about online education. It was just like something that really interested me that I kind of fell into from blogging. The first course I created was an Instagram course. How cliche, I want to say. No offense to anyone who creates that, because I'm just not the best person to teach about that these days. So that was like way back when, right? 2016. And I created this Instagram course based off this knowledge that I had learned. Like I remember just hearing from, I think it was Mariah Cos at the time, was the first person I invested with.
She does the WorkPlay method.
Oh, there you go. I was wondering that. I listened to one of her podcasts recently. I was like, I wonder if that's WorkPlay. So she's amazing, and she was the first person who I invested in anyway. And I remember her saying, like, what is one thing you've learned that you can like teach to someone else? And I was like, oh, Instagram. I weirdly grew this Instagram to like 40,000 followers super fast. I had people asking me about it. So that was like my foray into the online business world. It was just this like trial and error, just following, I want to say where the wind took me, but just trying different things. I sold out that course, which is amazing. Realized Instagram wasn't like for me to keep teaching. But I worked in PR. I was a PR consultant. My background was like journalism, PR. I was working corporate at the time. And then I thought, you know what? I have this skill of writing. I love also writing and encouraging women. So I kind of thought, why don't I try copywriting? Like literally created a post in a Facebook group, an Australian business Facebook group. It was probably 2017. I was like, hey, I'm thinking of launching a copywriting business, and I've got this special to write your bios for $50, which is crazy. And actually tons of people said yes, and I got paid that day, and I was like, ooh, there's something here. So I followed that and ended up doing website copy for years, like website copywriting, then sales pages. Then, that was a long time ago. I don't know, seven years ago or something. So then sort of niched more down into like launch copy, sales copy. And I just love that whole like conversion aspect of things, that you can tweak things, that you can optimize things, and that it can make a huge difference in your sales for a launch or an evergreen funnel. Like I'm obsessed with that. And today I still do that done for you copy, but I also teach people really how to create and optimize their own funnels for their own digital offers. So that is the short of the long story, really.
I love this because I just feel like you've been in so many different areas of business, which it makes sense why now you're more of a launch strategist, because you just understand all of the pieces. I'm so curious, like 40K followers going into like online business, like you don't just like get there. I feel like there's a road, there's a journey to getting like into all of this. Were you just naturally good at like the online world? I don't understand.
Oh, I think so. I just, that sounds weird. Like I had a Squarespace blog, and I don't know, it was just a different age of Instagram, right? And I didn't even tell my family and friends that I was running that account. It was just like kind of fun. It was connecting. I think that was what, like, and I have to remind myself of this today. Like today I'm more time poor. I have 2 kids. Like life is very different, and maybe connecting is not like my highest priority, but at that time it was. And I really think that got me very far when I was starting. And I think that applies to so many things, like just connecting with people, reaching out, literally relationships. If that makes sense.
I want to dive into that because I feel I feel like when people hear, oh, like you just have to connect, I feel like sometimes people still don't understand what that actually means in the online space. You know what I mean? Because I still get DMs of like, hey, follow me for this. And like, it's just like, that's not a connection. Or like, people will be like, hey, like, do you need help in this? Like, I can help you. And it's like the first time I'm even like talking to them. So like, what do you actually mean by like, create connection that actually moves the needle for someone? Because, or like grows the account? Because I just think it's such it can be so hard to kind of navigate, like especially in the online world of like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this actually doing anything? Like, how do you know when you have traction?
Yeah, I mean, I won't be dishing out Instagram tips today, but in terms of relationships, I think it's still the same principle, but maybe people do it a bit differently. But I'm like, I think for me, it was really around. It was two part. It was like peers. So I was in like a faith-based, like Christian blogging, right? Was what I was doing. And I actually connected with other girls who were doing it because it was fun to like connect with like-minded people. Like today I might connect with other, I don't know, copywriters or other funnel people. It's like, oh, someone else is doing this. They get it. So I would connect and like send messages, love this, you know, you're encouraging someone. And it was genuine. I mean, today, I don't know, sometimes things can be a little weird on Instagram, but maybe people make it weird. So there was that aspect of like, I want to get to know you. And people were really encouraging. And maybe that was a different time. But then there was also the nurture aspect of a community. So I actually created an email list. Like I honestly don't know where I got this from. I did learn from Mariah Cos, but honestly, it was kind of intuitive for me, perhaps. It was just like, cool, let's create this. I can talk to people here. I love writing, so I could write longer things. I could connect with people, like, you know, ask them to reply. And I would, you know, I would spend like a long time, like really caring about the people who had replied to my emails and really send back thoughtful replies. And then also down the track, when I sort of launched down into that Instagram, teaching about Instagram in the way that I'd grown it back then, you know, I created like a wait list, and I was just having conversations with people around like, what is frustrating for you? What is pain points for you? Like, I don't know if I identified what that was at the time. It was great market research. It was all of that, but it was just being like, I don't know, having conversations. Honestly, it was having conversations. And I believe like I had a tiny wait list. I know it was, my email list was less than 300. And I think I sold like 12 spots of this course. I think I sold it, I want to say between 400 and $700 US at the time. So this is just like my first experience selling something. And I think that principle of nurturing is like, it's still the same today, even though there are many ways to nurture, right? But it was just that care of like replying to people, listening to people. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think like the reason why I wanted to highlight that is because I think that's why you're so good at what you do, is because like you understand maybe someone else's perspective, the buyer's perspective, as they're going through, you know, the customer journey with someone's business. And I it's just a fascinating thing because I've met people who don't get that piece of it, and then they wonder why, you know, sales aren't happening, or like their revenue's going down, or like they didn't have a good launch, or whatever it is. And I think it does, like, from, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like I really do think it comes from this idea of understanding how someone is actually viewing your offer, your launch, your sales funnel, those sorts of things.
Oh, absolutely. You need to understand what they're thinking, what's top of mind for them. You know, they could have lots of pain points, but what's actually like top of mind? So many things. And if you miss this piece, your offers won't convert. It's just plain and simple. And that sucks.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, which is why I think this is so, so important. So let's just go very elementary for any WorkPlay members or potential WorkPlay members listening who are like, hey, I really want to get like my visuals on par. I've got my business, but I have no idea what you're talking about when you're saying funnel. Like, what is a funnel, like when it comes to in terms of a business?
Great question. Okay, so just think of like, it's like when someone gets to know who you are, to when they buy from you. It's just like this process, right? You could just call it like a nurture process. So someone's first interaction with you, now that could be, they see an Instagram post, they listen to a podcast, they see an ad, they see, I don't know, a pin on Pinterest that leads to your blog, like their first interaction with you. And then, okay, I just think of like as the step. What's the next step? And then, okay, maybe you have a freebie, you have a lead magnet, you have a guide, you have something like that. Okay, they go, oh, I want to learn more from you. They put their email address in. Great, you've captured their email address, so now they're a lead. But it's like, okay, then next step down the funnel. And then, okay, what's the next piece? Depending, like there are so many, it can get very complex. There could be like a tripwire page. There could be, all these sorts of things. But to keep it simple, it's like then they'll have a next interaction with you. Maybe it's that they get presented with a low ticket offer, or maybe it's that they get presented with, a webinar, like sign up to a webinar. So then there's another like step that nurtures them again. And then, from that step, it may be an email series, and they're getting this 10-part email series from you that is connecting with them. It's nurturing. It might be busting some myths. There's a few types of messages it might try to tackle in that, positioning you as an expert. And then from there, it's, selling an offer. And then, eventually we get to the end of that and they either purchase or they don't purchase. So they've gone through this experience with you from their first interaction with you to becoming a paying customer. And there are many things you can layer on top, but to put it simply, it's that, like the interaction to becoming a customer, like awareness to customer.
And for anyone that's listening who just listened to that whole thing and was like, oh my God, like that's a lot of steps. How necessary is it to go through those steps rather than just saying like, here's what I do, buy this?
Yeah. I mean, you can do that, but if you want to save you can do that. But if you want to save yourself time and make things more, make sure you're nurturing intentionally. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't know, like time is of the essence. So I want to make sure that I've got things set up that I forget things all the time. I want to make sure I don't forget things. So I also think of it that way. Like I have a funnel set up. It's a fancy word for just like, something that's a bit more automated. Of course, like the marketing on the front end is not, you might be doing that in real time and planning that out. But it's like, you can promote your offer. You can show up on Instagram and do that and talk about your offer. And I have done that, and that's okay, but it's exhausting. But whereas if you go, you know what, I have this, this funnel set up, or I have this email sequence, or I have this webinar created that is like, it's automated, it's set up. I know that when someone, downloads my freebie, then these different things will like happen after that. But my tech and tech, it doesn't have to be complicated. Again, I feel like we're talking about all these like big things, but it just like, it drips it out. It does that for you. It does the selling for you, I want to say. Of course, like there are human aspects to it you can bring in. But it's just like, do you want to be having to feel the pressure of all the sales on you all of the time, or having something that like does a lot of that heavy lifting? And again, I will say it depends on what you are selling. So, you could be selling something high ticket, and a part of your funnel might actually be, hey, the real call to action is like, get on a discovery call, get on a discovery call, get on a discovery call. Like that's your focus, right? And then you show up and you connect and you do the selling there manually. But it might be, it's a lower ticket or mid-ticket course, and it's that you have this email sequence that does the selling for you. So it totally depends on your offer. But it just is that you have this piece in place that does the heavy lifting, so you're not having to manually sell all the time. You get to more focus on the front end stuff, knowing that the right pieces are in the right places.
Yeah, it's almost like you just have to do like the manual stuff of like showing up to get someone to do a very easy step. And then it's like so downhill from there. It's like, all I need to do is get these 10 people to give me their email lists or their emails for my email list. And then like the funnel takes it from there.
That's right.
Okay. Cool,
yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. And if over time, if my conversion rate is this, or this sells at this percentage, then you can go, if I get 100 people, then I know that 5 people will join this offer. Or, if I get 50 people, then I know that 10 people will book a discovery call. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, totally. What are the biggest mistakes that you see when someone is building a funnel for their offer?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is always that like initial messaging thing, but the messaging flows throughout. But gosh, there's so many things. Well, it could, it's the offers and it's the messaging. Often I will say, like, someone can have an amazing offer, but it's the way you talk about your offer. Let's put it that way. So your offer could be incredible. And like, I've had this before in my business. Like, I have had flops and I've had to tweak things, or sometimes have had to scrap things. But oftentimes it comes down to the messaging, and that could be the difference between, your conversion rate being like 2% or being like 15%. I had this with a little offer I tested last year that's now sort of running. It's a low ticket offer. I'll give you an example. And I've had it forever, right? I think I created it in 2017, but I wanted to test a low ticket offer funnel. So I brought it back. It was 1 year of email prompts, right? So I put it up. I did like a little sales page. I ran some ads to it. I tested it organically, and like it converted fine. I think it was 4% or 5%, but to me, that wasn't good enough to make like a return on my ads, even though of course I had like other little pieces in that funnel to increase the average order value. But then I thought, okay, how can I make this sound more appealing to people? Like, there's some different triggers you can pull. Like, how can I make it sound easier? How can I make it sound more valuable? How can I make it sound really simple, for the customer? And I thought, okay, 1 year, what if I just tried positioning it as 52? So then I changed the positioning from 1 year of email prompts to 52 email prompts, because for some reason 52 sounds more valuable than 1. And that did increase the conversion a little bit. But then I thought, do you know what? What if I just spent the time to turn these prompts into full email templates? And that's insane to give away 52 email templates for $7, which is what I do. But what if this worked, and then I could like acquire all these customers, and it just like really helped me grow my email list, without having to, like, it's profitable, for use of a better words. But anyway, so I shifted the messaging, and I put the work. I spent a day like turning everything into like templates and all of that. And then the conversion rate, I think it's something like 14% now on this mini offer. And then I was tracking everything, and then I even had a little bump offer too, which I optimized as well. I went through the same process, like with every offer in my funnel, to go, okay, how can I bring this conversion rate up? So yes, that's just a little example. But what I do see is people, they put their offer out there, they have a name for it, and it maybe doesn't convert as well as they like, or and then they scrap it and say, oh, this didn't work. But it's like, your offer's amazing. It's super valuable, but maybe we just need to tweak, either the name or the way you're explaining it to people. And that can make all the difference in your conversion rate.
I think that's so fascinating. And so it's so cool to see how you tweaked things in your own journey. Like, because I don't think people realize these small little pieces, if you tweak one, it can really affect everything else. What are symptoms of like when something is a messaging issue versus when something's an offer issue?
Yeah. I think I can think of one example in my own business again. It was just like launch. I'll give an example. So it was this like low lift launch lab, and I'm like, this is amazing. I'm going to be, this sounds good. I really worked on the messaging. I tried to sell it twice. I got a couple of people in, but it was not converting. I'm like, this is amazing. I don't understand. I'm going to help you. It was like 8 weeks where I was going to help them create their first like launch. And it was like with a simple email sequence, all of this stuff. I felt like the messaging was connecting with people, but then when I give people also, it was like at the sales page, which at the point for that was actually just a Google Doc, people were dropping off. So it was like people were initially interested with the messaging, but then they see the details and they were dropping off. And I tried it 3 different ways because I was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. Like, this has got to work. It's so good. People will love it. And then I talked to a few people and they were like, oh, I just, there's 8 weeks of live calls. Like, I can't do that. Or this is really time consuming, And I went, this structure is not helpful. And then I thought, and I also talked to a couple of business friends and I asked them their thoughts, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to commit to 8 weeks of calls to get this transformation. I was like, oh, that's the issue. So I think sometimes like you can tweak the messaging and tweak it. And I think there are ways you can test this too. Like, you can send an email out to your list, ask people to respond instead of giving them directly like a link to a sales page. Be like, oh, are you interested? Let me know. Tons of people respond, fantastic. But then when you actually give them the info, if it's like crickets, even if you followed up, it's like, okay, what's going on here? And I think even asking people is helpful, because I had this conversation with a lady who signed up. I ended up actually turning her thing into like a one-on-one. And she was like, why didn't it convert? And I was like, well, this is what I think. And she's like, yeah, I have kids. Like, I was thinking that too. She's like, I love your stuff, so I wanted to join, but that was my concern. So I was able to have that conversation with the customer. Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. It's so interesting. What about when, like, because I know a lot of times, sometimes people are like, well, is this too expensive, or where am I pricing this out? Does price have an effect on offer or messaging?
Good question. What do you mean, does it have an effect on offer or messaging?
Like, if like, for example, are people not buying because it's priced too high, or do we just need to change the messaging? Or, you know what I mean? Like, or is it like, how do you know when you have it priced correctly? And if that is the reason why people are not buying, like maybe the offer is structured correctly and you've done all of these like messaging calls and you've done your research, but then people still aren't buying. And, you know, maybe it's people are saying like, you're getting that price objection.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think sometimes it can be price, and I think it comes down to, and sometimes it's not, but if you've done all of those messaging things, you've really tried to optimize your offer, people are interested, again, you can sort of test it by sending it to people, but not giving them like the sales page link with all the details yet. So if people are putting their hands up going, yeah, I'm interested, but then they're, you know, crickets. But I think it can be price, and it can also be the type of person you're targeting. So if you're like, I really want to sell it at this price, well, it's like, who is the hottest buyer? You know, maybe that person actually genuinely doesn't have that budget, or the stage of business they're at. Maybe they are, you know, $50,000 to $70,000 in business, and they're not going to pay, you know, $5,000 for this thing, for your offer. So maybe it's just like not a good fit. But if you, again, this can be a messaging thing. You could tweak your messaging to speak to maybe a more qualified buyer, or a buyer who does have a higher budget. Yeah, so messaging can do many things for you. But yeah, there's so many circumstances, so it's hard. I don't want to be prescriptive. But me personally, I do these days, especially, I do like starting lower, and then it's like you can always increase your price if the conversion rate's there. But again, I won't say that as a blanket rule for everyone, because some people, you know, you may want to target a more sophisticated buyer who has that bigger budget. So yeah.
That makes so much sense. And I feel like this is such a good starting point for us to go into an even deeper level of this conversation, which is like, how are we actually launching our offers? How are we actually getting the revenue in? So many people, I think, this year have kind of like felt the pressure or things like that. Like, it just, people are feeling like the market just isn't the same as it was before. So how can WorkPlay members, like, they've created their visuals for this upcoming campaign, how can they get revenue through the door with some launch strategy?
Yes, absolutely. Well, oh gosh, there are so many different ways you can launch something. So many different ways, you know.
I'm so excited.
You can do you can do a webinar, you can do a challenge, you can do, you know, you don't have to do any of that at all. You can launch, like, it really just depends on what you're launching. It depends on what your offer is. Recently, I launched a new offer in July, which is apparently summer in the US. I say that because I'm in Australia. And you know why I say that? Because I saw all these posts of like, oh, people aren't buying, it's summer. And I literally didn't even think that it was summer, because it's not summer where I live. And I'm like, well, my life is really normal right now, apart from all of the sickness that comes with kids. But anyway, my life is really, really normal. I'm just doing my normal thing, and I'm still selling. And I did a little launch in July, and it was actually an email-only launch. So there's so many different ways to launch. And I didn't even think about summer once until I saw posts about people going, people aren't buying, it's summer. I was like, what? I'm selling and people are buying. So where was I going with that? I think it's like, oh my gosh, where was I going with that?
Like, how, like, does it, like, how are we getting, you know, because with the market changes, right?
Yes.
People are like feeling this kind of heat, or maybe they're even just hearing about it. Like, hey, the market's changing. People aren't buying the same way. Like, how are people like changing the way that they're launching, or do they need to change the way that they're launching in order to make the same amount of revenue maybe they were making last year?
I think, yeah, I mean, maybe that's the case. I honestly don't like to buy into those narratives too much. I like to focus on what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it may be that that's the case. It really may be, but I just think there are enough buyers out there for you. You know, I live in Australia. In America, it's been summer. It's like I'm still selling, going about my normal life. I didn't even think once, oh, it's summer, people aren't buying. It didn't cross my mind until I saw a post about it. So I am cautious when I hear those messages. I honestly kind of ignore them because I just want to run in my own lane and focus on my audience. So the things that I think of when I'm gearing up for a launch is like, am I growing my email list? That's the biggest one. You know, you might think, oh, people aren't buying the same way they were last year, but do you have more people to talk to? So maybe, I mean, if that is true, say hypothesis, if that is true, maybe there's some data out there from people who are smarter than me. But if that is true, maybe we just need to get in front of more people. Maybe we need to make sure our messaging is speaking, again, that sophisticated messaging to the person who is our hottest buyer. I always tell my students this. Who is your hottest buyer? Do you actually know what they're thinking? It's not everyone. It's like, who is the person who is most willing and ready to buy, who has the money, you know? So are you growing your email list well ahead of your launch?
How long before?
Continually grow all the time. Months, you know, like I would always be growing. But I mean, if someone has a launch coming up, they're like, oh, I have a launch in 2 months. That's not helpful. Well, start growing your email list now, you know. Whether you are launching with like an event, like a webinar, an open house, challenge or something. Yes, I think a lot of people think, oh, I've just got to maybe grow my email list with people who are signed up for that event. But you should be growing it beforehand. Yeah, you definitely should be growing it beforehand with something like a main lead magnet or freebie.
Okay. And how are you getting traffic to the lead magnet or the freebie? Is it ads? Is it like social? Is it like, how are we getting eyeballs to actually get the email addresses?
Yeah, this is my favorite thing at the moment. I'm having so much fun with it, which is nice. Ads and organic. What I've been doing this year, like I wasn't running ads until I think it was like end of last year. And I think I'd always told myself, oh, you're not techie enough, or, you know, it's too complicated. It's too complicated. I can't figure it out. But I was like, I have to figure this out. I don't have the time to do everything organic, and I really want to put fuel on the fire. So I figured it out, and thank God for that. So ads. And then what I'm doing is, you know, I kind of like ditched Instagram for a while because I was like, this doesn't feel like a good use of my time, right? Kind of like what we were saying earlier with, oh, I was just showing up and going, hey, this offer, I didn't really know, I wasn't using it very well. But then when I started running ads, I was like, oh, all these people are also finding my Instagram account. So this feels like now my organic content is elevated. So I feel great posting on Instagram because I know that my ads are also elevating my organic content. Like people going to my profile, they watch the stories, they'll, you know, look at the other posts that are there, not just the ads, they're interacting, they're following. So I'm personally really enjoying that combination of organic and ads. And then I'm also sometimes involved with, say, some bundles or some email list swaps, which are really good ideas, you know, if you they're great ideas to sort of lean on your peers. Or maybe if you don't have budget for ads.
Okay, love that. And so once we're like growing our email list continually, but maybe a few months before the launch, then what are we doing once it's like go time?
Yeah. I mean, ideally you've been nurturing people too with emails, not just going, hey, I've got this thing. So, you know, I mean, you can do 12 weeks of nurture emails, shifting beliefs, positioning yourself as an expert, sharing, you know, case studies, testimonials, all of that stuff so that people who are on your list are already warming up. if you've done that work, then, when it comes time to opening your cart doors, you'll have people who are actually ready to buy and who understand, the value in your offer. You can even mention your offer and that you're going to be selling it. I do think that's one thing that people these days, like I do see that, appreciate. And I appreciate it. So maybe, 7 years ago or 5 years ago, it was a little different. You could just go, oh, here's the offer. Something's coming. But I do think people do appreciate knowing that something's coming. You can forecast for it. Maybe some people, again, it depends on your audience, but are a little more budget conscious. So to know that something's coming up or the cost, I don't think that's a bad thing to share these days. I actually think it can be helpful. So you've done that sort of nurturing. I guess it's like a pre-launch period. You may launch with an event. You may not launch with an event. Again, it really depends on your offer. And then you'll have a targeted email campaign, and that also may be something that you share on social every day if you're really good with Instagram. And, if you have an audience there and it makes sense for you. I haven't always done that. As I, said, I ghosted Instagram for a while. But for me, like my email list, that's so important to me. And then as well, like I'm not an ad strategist, but you may run some like open cart ads as well. But I always think email is everything. Like that's the meat of it. Yeah. And I might do like a 10-day email campaign over that launch. That could be, direct. Well, usually it's direct to a sales page. But if it's a new offer, it may be just asking people to like telling people about the offer and then saying, hey, you interested? Hit reply, let me know. Like I just did this for an offer and sold out. I had like 20 spots and I sold 21 spots because someone crept in overnight. But I did that just with saying, reply interested if you're interested. And because it was a new offer, I really wanted to have conversations with people. So that's why I did that. But yeah.
I love that. And like this, I think you're like, just hearing you, it's like you're the queen of conversions. It's like, I feel like people are like, how are you getting people to respond to the email and then saying yes to this offer? Does it really just come down to messaging in the offer? Like what are some misconceptions around creating conversions online with this funnel?
Yeah, it comes down to your messaging. I was so specific with it. I actually created an email that was like, is this what you want? Because I didn't know. And it was just this test because it was an initial offer. Obviously for an existing offer, your launch campaign is people already know. But I just had the one sentence that very clearly explained what the offer was and who it was for, like super clearly. This is for you if, you've struggled with this in the past, you've struggled with this in the past, and you want to do this. And this is exactly what I'm going to help you do. And I laid that out. It was like one sentence. I used it again and again once I knew that it connected. I actually started that email with a story because it made sense. But anyway, and then it's like reply interested if you are. And people did. Like it was, I don't know, it was like 70 plus replies or something. I was like, whoa, this is really exciting. It's so fun when something connects. But again, I think like a misconception is people might test something with their audience and go, oh, I heard crickets. And I have been there before so many times. And then you feel discouraged and you just go, my offer sucks. But it's like, no. Maybe it's just the way you're positioning this. Are you listening to your audience? Why don't you try and talk to them? What questions do they have? What are they asking you about, and try and reposition it.
It's so interesting because I feel like we're going through this in WorkPlay branding as well, where we're about to move into a different industry and not like as a whole, just we're opening up ourselves to another industry. And we got on a messaging call. We have someone in the industry who like just knows it inside and out. We got on a messaging call with her. And then when we redid almost like a pitch deck or a webinar, the way that we had to talk about the offer was so different. It was so different in how we're positioning like their desires and their specific pain points. And it's like she got on, I had her review the pitch deck and she was like, this is spot on. This is exactly what they're needing. It's just so interesting how the messaging can attract different people to just say, yep, this is exactly what I needed. And although like our process or our offer hasn't changed, it's like the way that you can completely transform how someone thinks about it. And if they're a good fit for it is magical and kind of insane and amazing.
It's amazing.
I love it. Okay. I want to make this digestible for WorkPlay clients who are like going through our process, creating visuals 4 times a year. How are they using visuals in their launch funnels, in their funnels in general? Like, how can they optimize what they're creating in this process to amplify the launch or the funnel?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many pieces. You use visuals everywhere. I can think of like what I think perhaps the most important one is, but let me just think in terms of the order of the funnel. You know, maybe you have it like a freebie, you have beautiful visual, you know, for like a guide, or like you use your visuals there, you use your visuals on your landing page. You might, when it comes to the marketing, which is kind of one step back, like that sort of step one really is you may use your visuals in ads. You may, you know, use it more for like the offer pitches, which I think is a really big thing. And then when so you've got that like marketing pieces, the like your freebie landing page, you will have like an email sequence. And then on your sales page, of course, you're going to definitely need amazing visuals there. Offer mock-ups, using them in there as well. Like I think in like little tiles representing like a guide or representing, you know, some checklist or anything you have, just using your visuals in there so it looks great. I think it's so sad to me when people have a great offer and their messaging is good and then their visuals let them down. It's like, oh no, you know, because and you know this is what you guys do, but it just creates trust. If your visuals are not up to scratch, it just makes me question whether I should purchase your offer, because I don't know, even if it's amazing, if the visuals don't look good, it can raise questions. So yeah, sales page is probably, like, to me, that's the biggest place, and in any of your offer mock-ups.
I feel like the standard for visuals these days is through the roof. Like people don't, I feel like everyone has brand visuals now, right? And it's just like the consumer, if you don't have at least professional visuals on this landing page, like the packaging around the offer is just, it's not giving the same level of authority that maybe like 90% of other people are having that they're also seeing. So I just think like the standard is like completely through the roof these days. Do you find that certain visuals or certain like colors or certain things like in your ads and your sales pages like have an effect on conversion rates, or like have an effect on like how far someone scrolls or where they click? I know that you're very data driven, so I would love to understand like how that kind of comes back to like what you're showing people online.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I haven't, dived into this really deeply with sort of images. I just know that, I guess where you do put your like offer mock-up and things like that, you want to make sure that they're in the right place. When you're introducing your offer, making sure that image is clear, making sure that it's appealing, making sure that it shows value. This is such a good question. It's something that I will dive down a little rabbit hole and learn more about. Yeah, I will say what's super interesting is that, for ads, and me now having run ads for a little bit, some of the more casual stuff can actually really work for ads. You don't necessarily need to have all the polished images, but again, it's testing, right? But you definitely need the polished images on your sales page. You do. You can't, the casual thing's not going to work there. I think, you can use a lot of like reels for ads these days, and those tend to do quite well in my experience. So you can get away with things being a little more off the cuff, but when it does come to that, just the way, like even on your checkout page, I just think of like having a really good offer mock-up, even a headshot of yourself, all that stuff just needs to be, on point.
Why do you think like the sales page, because I understand the more like off the cuff things, it kind of like blends into the platform. It doesn't feel like you're watching an ad. But then how come when you're ready to like make the conversion on the sales page, how come you need that professionalism? Like, why do you think that is such a trigger point in in the process of the launch and the funnel?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's because, you're presenting your offer as this, you're an expert. This is my solution, to help you. It's amazing. And then if the visuals just seem like they were, I don't know, taken in your, like a little selfie in your kitchen, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't elevate your offer. It's like what you said before, the authority, the expertise, everything that your offer, like this is, the complete offer to help you do X, Y, Z. Like, this is going to solve your problem. And then if it's like, it looks like, maybe it's even the care, the care. It shows that, having these images, it's like the care that you've put into your offer. It kind of, I can't even find the words. I feel like you explained it really well before, but it's not just, maybe it's like, it's not just thrown together, when you do have those professional images, you've really thought about this. And obviously, from a visuals point of view, there's so much you can combine with like your messaging and your visuals. Even in mine, I talk about like rosé, and in my visuals, I had like rosé. It's just like all those touches that, you can of course have those cross points with and have so much fun with your messaging and your offer as well. So like your images can connect with the like brand messaging that you use and all of that to, I don't know, elevate each other and make it seem thoughtful.
Yeah, it's almost like if people can see the through line between the offer, the visuals, they're like, wow, they like really put this together. Or
yes,
wow, this is like a high-end offer. Wow, like I know that this is going to be good because it's not just like thrown up here and anyone on the internet could do that. Like this, it looked like it took planning.
Exactly.
I feel like that's very underrated in terms of like the consumer buying decision of like, was this just thrown together or did someone actually put some thought into it? Because like the barrier to entry is so low these days. It's like, how do you show that, hey, no, I'm the person, I'm the expert here.
And it is representative of like, it's like almost a sneak peek of how your offer is going to be. It's like, that this is positioned well, that this is presented really professionally, that, I feel confident. I think it does like trigger that confidence piece that it's not just going to be some thrown together thing on the other side. And especially if you are wanting to charge like a higher price for things, it needs to, your visuals and messaging need to sort of meet nicely together there.
I totally agree. How many times a year should people be launching?
Yeah, good question. I think at least once. Like it depends on you, your lifestyle. Like I'm a mom of 2 boys under 3, so live launching is not always the easiest thing, but it does depend on the type of launch you're doing. I think it depends on your goals and your plan. Like if you've got a new offer, you might want to launch it. If you're wanting to create a bit of buzz and awareness, doing a live launch is great. Yes, you can run things on evergreen. I think that's beautiful. I love doing that. But there is something about doing something live, a live campaign that can create a little bit of buzz, especially if you were to do, a live webinar or some sort of event as well, where you do have the opportunity to create a lot of like in-time connections with people. So at least once a year, I think is great. But also if you are going, you know what, I'm happy I've got an offer on Evergreen, but I want to refresh assets. I did this a few months ago with one of my offers. I did a live launch because I knew that I wanted to redo the email sequence. And I was like, well, I'm not just going to, like, I may as well just live launch this, as opposed to just rewriting all the evergreen emails. I may as well just take the time to really go through the whole launch sequence and then turn it into a launch. So I used it as an opportunity to refresh the assets for my evergreen, as well as obviously create the buzz live.
Oh, I love that.
Some people, love to do a live launch quarterly. I think a lot of people will, even like launch strategists will recommend that, but I'm just super sensitive to, people's lifestyles, and it can take a lot of energy. So I think it's such a personal preference, but as long as you do have your funnel set up in the right pieces. So if you're not live launching, you do have something evergreen and then you're driving traffic, then that's going to be your focus. Yeah.
I love that. And like for all of my WorkPlay members who are like creating the visuals on a quarterly basis, it's like you get to be really strategic on which quarter is going to be, the visuals for the offer or the visuals for this other funnel that you have going down the pipeline. I love that. how can all of the WorkPlay community and members, how can they work with you, find you, get more information if they are planning a launch in the next quarter?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Connection Copy Co, and website is connectioncopy.co. Yeah, send me a DM, say hello. So in terms of like done for you offers, I do VIP days. I create sales messaging, sales pages, email sequences, all of that stuff. Or if you're just needing, things polished, VIP days are a great option. And then I have some sort of like courses done with you and done for you options as well. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram is usually the best place, and shoot me a DM if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to sort of provide some options and we can chat.
You guys, I have bought one of her $7 email templates, I think that you were talking about.
Yeah. You did.
They converted so well. Like, I was like, oh my God. In the first week, I think we like did it, we promoted it, and then it was like it was like an offer bump from like an lead magnet. And I was like, oh my God, like people are buying the offer. This is great. And it was like on autopilot. So I know that your stuff works, and I'm super excited for everyone to check you out and start building their funnels with you.
Yay. Love hearing that. Thank you.